Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Nathan Apollo, creator of Tales from Cazilor and now Tales from Cazilor Wyldflowers. If you clicked on this, you probably just listened to my recent album and are wondering what the fuck is going on. That's okay. Look at how many views this video has. You are not alone. I, the creator, am here to explain everything. Throughout this video, you may hear me say the phrase, if you watched the D&D show, you would already know this. That's because last summer I released a Tales from Cazilor D&D show. It took place 25 years before the original album, and if you watched it, there's quite a lot of stuff that you would already know. Unfortunately, the percentage of my listeners who have seen the D&D show is depressingly low. So I had to spend this album catching all of you up, as well as introducing new things for all of the listeners. It was very hard. You made it very difficult for me. Why didn't you watch the D&D show? It's fine. I don't hold it against you. All right, with that said, let's dive right in to scene 1, after the fall. That's right. I chose to start Wyldflowers directly after the fall of Demeter. Why did I do that? Because too many of you think Summer Night in Demeter is about Apollo. I don't know if I'm a bad writer or if media literacy is dead. In the original album, in scene 6, Anniversary, the one before Summer Night in Demeter, it feels like everybody heard Apollo say this. You know, I was in Demeter when it happened.
Is that so?
And then they just decided to shut their ears off until the song played, because absolutely nobody heard the conversation that followed seconds after. Yeah, I was born there. I was living with my mom.
You remember much?
Nah, not much. I was so young, you know. He said he was a kid. He said he doesn't remember much. He said he was a kid. Captain said one of his friends was there, and he starts to tell a story. The song is obviously about Captain's friend, or at the very least told by Captain. If you thought it was about Captain, I wouldn't even blame you. But why do you think it's about Apollo? He said he was so young. It's fine. That's why I'm here, to clear up confusion. So we start this album after the fall of Demeter, and then a lot of stuff happens. Apollo is a child and a refugee of war. In this new town that he is now living in, he meets Tyler. We see them talking at recess. Tyler asks about Apollo's mom. Tyler says, well, the teachers say your mom is dead. And Apollo goes, no, she's not dead, just missing. I'll find her someday. And I'm sure this detail won't become important later at all. Moving on. The Masmith shows up, and Argy and Ari are here. If you watch the D&D show, you know who they are. Now, every single scene that we witness is not just a scene. There are little things that are mentioned throughout that canonize things very quickly. Through this conversation between Ari and Apollo, we learn a lot of things. First off, Ari's a Highblade now. Wow, how fast they grow up. Second off, you learn the names of different countries in the wild. Toltag is the ruler of the nation Atraria. Ginsi is the ruler of the nation Estersal. Cazilor is sandwiched between them, between these two giant nations, one of them their enemies, one of them their allies. We had known that giants and humans work together, but we didn't have location names before, and now we do. You're welcome. Also, through this conversation with Ari, we learn that you can be born blessed, and that these blessings can sometimes turn into gifts, and also that giants can kind of tell who is blessed. Once again, if you watch the D&D show, you would know this already. Blessings and gifts are essentially the power system. And let me actually explain this right now, because people seem to get really confused. Some people in the wild, which is the name of the world we live in, if you watch the D&D show, you would know this. Some people in the wild can be born blessed. This is entirely random. Of those people, some of them may develop a gift. Gifts are basically superpowers. And once one activates inside you, it physically changes your appearance. This is why when Ari says to the boys that you might develop a gift, Tyler asks, will I grow horns too? And she goes, if you're lucky. Very cheeky, very fun. Gifts can range anywhere from very minute to incredibly powerful, but obviously incredibly powerful ones are much more rare. Everybody who has a gift was born blessed. Not everybody who is blessed has a gift. It's a square and rectangle situation. You know what I mean? If you are born blessed, at some point in your life, a gift may activate inside you. That's it. Boom, bam, bop, you got it. Also, through this conversation, when talking about blessings, Ari says that it's a great honor to be chosen by Mother Nature herself. That's right! The religion in this world is Mother Nature! If you watch the D&D show, you would know that. And I want to say right now, Mother Nature isn't like a goddess in the way that you think of a goddess. Mother Nature is more of a human personification of an animistic deity that is undeniable in this world. Nature in this world, in the wild, is magical. That is undeniable. It doesn't pick sides, it doesn't choose favorites, it just is. And a lot of the religion is revolved around passing energy to and from nature and back again. But you know humans, we love to anthropomorphize everything. A deity that is everything, everywhere, all at once? How about Mother Nature? Hubba hubba! And I think that's everything that's been canonized in just scene 1. Whoo! I told you there's a lot! This scene ends with Highblade Ari giving a speech, basically empowering and inspiring the youth to answer the call to the Masmus. Then we immediately go straight into the song, Can You Hear the Call? This song is basically an Apollo song, but it's also kind of just like a Cazilor song, you know what I mean? It's also one of the only songs on this project that has story-relevant information directly in the song. Most of the time, the scenes and the songs can exist independently from each other, but for this particular song, you need to hear it to know where we're going next. Through the narration of the song, we know that Apollo and Tyler trained together every day till they were old enough to try out for the Masmus. And then when they got into the Masmus, their squad was a little weird. Not to quote the song directly, but where most squads would be trained by a simple captain, this squad was a special project managed firsthand by the legendary Commander Hakee. New character, new character, new character! Finally, some information that is new to everyone, D&D enjoyers and album enjoyers alike. We then move directly into Scene 2, Commander Hakee. In Scene 2, we witness a sort of meeting between this new character, Commander Hakee, and this returning character, Captain, who we now know is called Captain Oldovich. How exciting! This scene is pretty much all about painting the picture of Commander Hakeem's master plan, as well as her relationship between her and the captain. Commander Hakeem wants to make a squad capable of ending the war. In order to do this, she had to get approval from a governing body known as the Warlord Assembly. If you watch the D&D show, you already know what this is. The Warlord Assembly are the brass of the Masmus and essentially the higher leadership. They call the shots, they deal out the quests, they handle all the major motion that happens during the war. D&D watchers know that it consists of humans and giants, often with a lot of experience and knowledge. Commander Hakeem keeps talking about her plan, but she literally explains it in the album. I'm not going to sit here and explain it for you again. Just go listen to the scene if you want to know what her plan is. But we also hear this new term thrown around by Captain Oldovich. As soon as he finds out that these rejects were all born blessed, he calls them a bunch of cranks. D&D watchers already know what this is. Getting called a crank is basically a very antiquated insult. I like to draw a comparison to tattoos. Old people in our world have a very harsh opinion about tattoos, whereas young people don't really care about tattoos at all. That's kind of how the insult crank is in this world. In the D&D show, Tales from Cazilor the Golden Era, which takes place 25 years in the past, people who were born blessed were expected to serve society. Mother Nature chose you. Help us. Help humanity. There are pretty much only two ways you could do that. Either by joining the Masmus and serving your mandatory time, or dedicating your life to the church. And if you didn't want to do either of those things, you were a fucking crank. You were selfish. You were narcissistic. You were unempathetic. And therefore, you were outcast. You were shunned. But nowadays, in the modern era, kids don't really give a shit about any of that. Like, what do you mean I'm born blessed and now I can only do two things? That's stupid. Do whatever you want, man. And that's kind of the opinion of the kiddos. And Commander Hakeem agrees with that. She thinks that these cranks have a lot of untapped potential, which is a pretty progressive mindset to have for someone as old as she is. She's not that old, but she's like 40. Captain Oldovich is in his 50s. He definitely hates cranks. It sounds like a slur. It's not a slur. Stop calling it a slur. I know you're in the comments. But you'll notice throughout the album that pretty much only Captain Oldovich uses the insult crank genuinely. Everybody else just kind of tosses it around like, can you imagine if we actually believed this garbage? Anyway, Captain Oldovich and Commander Hakee butt heads. Commander Hakee wants to end this war, and she is determined to do so. We then go straight into the song, Runaway. Runaway is very simple. It's all about Commander Hakee and her mindset towards the world. Face the front or face the back, it will fuck you either way. The last thing she said in scene 2 was, I don't like when my soldiers run away or even close their eyes. The only way you can make a difference in this world is if you face the music. And that's what Runaway is all about. Quit acting like you're helpless. Do something, dude! We then move on to scene 3, High Standards. This might be my favorite scene on the project, but it's so hard to choose. Get ready for more lore that D&D watchers already know. We learn a lot in this scene, but the main thing we learn is squad roles, climbers, stalwarts, anchors. These are different fighting styles that knights are placed into depending on their existing skill sets. And they all do different things. Now, stalwarts and anchors aren't fully explained, so I guess I'll just break it down all right here. Climbers, surprise, surprise, they climb. Their goal is to go from toe to head and slice. This is the fastest and most efficient way for a human to kill a giant. But it's also incredibly dangerous. It is very much high risk, high reward. Stalwarts. These people operate on the ground. Their job is not only to survey the entire battlefield, but also to provide distractions. They do this by attacking the legs. Stalwarts would also handle any other smaller problems on the battlefield, like if there were smaller non-giant enemies to deal with, or if there were civilians that needed to be escorted out of the way of danger. These are things that stalwarts would handle. And anchors. These are our distance fighters. They fight with a special arrow called an anchoring arrow. If you watch the D&D show, you know what this is. We see one get used at the very beginning of the Go 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 music video. Although Tyler is using it to steal sushi, we'll get to that later. All of these roles operate primarily on horses unless they choose to dismount them in combat. Horses are the great equalizer when your opponent is 40 feet tall. And that's pretty much all the world lore that we learn, but we also learn new information about our lovely characters. We learn that Arthur, Apollo, and Genesis, among others, by the way, are all climbers. How exciting! Arthur's back, and Jen was name-dropped in the first album. Commander Hakee is not only trying to train rejects, she's trying to train them to a higher standard than the Masmus standard. And the Masmus standard is already pretty crazy. Clearly, she wants to end the war. We also learn that Arthur has a gift. Not only is this mentioned in the scene, but we also see in the Loser music video that he has spines growing out of his back. Gifts alter your appearance. That's a gift. There it is. So we know he has a gift, but we don't know what it is. And we also don't know why he refuses to use it. I'm sure this won't be important for future Cazilor projects. We also learn that Arthur is cracked as fuck. Like, he's clearly in a league of his own. Like, yes, he's an asshole, but bro is good. He's good, man. He's fucking good. This must mean that Arthur is one of those people who was disqualified from the tryouts, because there is absolutely no way that someone this talented would have failed. And we don't know why. But maybe someday we will. We also learned that Apollo's kind of trash. He is not that great, but he tries really hard, and that is admirable of him. At the end of the scene, when Apollo fails miserably, he gets called a loser by Arthur, and we go straight into the song Loser. Loser's about Arthur. Watch the music video. I don't need to explain this one. It's about Arthur and what he thinks of everybody else, but also what he thinks of himself. Storytelling! Moving on. Scene 4. The mess hall. Beans or rice? The main purpose of the scene in terms of lore is to build out the squad roles a little bit more. If you didn't watch the D&D show, you don't know anything about how they work. So through these recruits complaining about their training regiments, you learn a little bit more about what they do. We learn that Jen is a pretty good climber. 8.5. We learn that Tyler is an anchor, Spencer is a stalwart, and Beldrick, a deaf recruit, is a witch. What is a witch? If you watched the D&D show, witches are basically practicers of medicine and magic. In terms of the Masmis, they are field medics. So instead of running climbing drills, they study potions and enchantments. It's magic, but it's also kind of science. Beldrick was probably one of those people who was disqualified for joining the Masmis because he was deaf. But Commander Hakeem doesn't care about such things. She cares about your skill level and your potential. And clearly, Beldrick had some. Beldrick is always besides Omari, for no other reason, I'm sure, aside from the fact that Omari clearly speaks Cazilorian Sign Language and is able to translate for the group while they're still learning. We know this because when Beldrick was speaking, Apollo had to ask Omari to translate. Omari, also an anchor by the way, because he almost shot Tyler with an arrow. In this scene, we also canonize Leviathans. Sea life in Cazilor can get big. And we learned that Tyler is one of the only people on the squad who's actually had the chance to try some. And this fact clearly resonates with Tyler very deeply, as we will see in later scenes. In the end, despite everyone sharing that they're all going through hard times, Apollo still feels like he's dug himself into a hole. We then go straight into the song, Gravedigger. I feel like this song's pretty self-explanatory. It's about Apollo. He feels like he's fucked up. He should have worked harder in the past, but thankfully, he has his friends to help him out. And he doesn't know why, but he's thankful for them. And that's about it. Next scene. Scene 5. Under the Moon. This scene, Apollo is training late at night, and Jen comes and finds him, and they have a little talk. At the very beginning of this scene, as Jen is approaching, we hear Apollo mutter under his breath, "If only I could figure out what my gift is, maybe it could help me." Boom! Apollo was gifted, but he doesn't know what it is yet. This can happen. In the D&D show, we see this kind of process where sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to even figure out what your gift is. Imagine this. You are born blessed. You develop a gift. Your gift is that you are immune to fire. How do you figure out you're immune to fire? You don't even know where to begin. You don't even know that your gift is an immunity. You just know that you are gifted and now you have to figure it out. And some gifts are harder to figure out than others. Imagine if you got a gift that let you talk to snails. You would never know until you said hi to a snail one day and it said hi back. Thankfully, the Masmis has a procedure for figuring these things out. We learn more about it in the D&D show. Go watch it. But it's not important for this album. The point is, Apollo has a gift and we don't know what it is. How exciting! Anyways, Jen arrives and begins to help Apollo in his training, and we find out that fucking Jen knows ball, dude. Like, this is like the most confident I've ever heard her speak about anything, and it's about how to climb well. She is very talented at climbing, she is self-taught, just like Apollo is, and she has daddy issues. Why does this seem to be a common theme? Daddy issues, mommy issues, gosh, the cast is just like you. It's in this scene that album-only listeners learn about the whole crank term being very traditional. We also touch on the whole Masmis or the church thing very briefly. Again, all of this isn't really relevant in the modern era, but back in the day, back in the golden era, watch the D&D show, this shit mattered a lot more. And a lot of the people who lived through that are still alive today, so older people have outdated opinions. Such is life. But we learn that Jen's dad is very traditional, not only in the societal sense, but also in the misogyny sense. Women don't belong in the Masmis, he says. Boo! So she was destined to live a life in the church, and like she said, it was fine. Being in the church isn't always terrible, especially when your religion is like true. It's like undeniably true. But that wasn't the point. The point is she wasn't making any choices for herself. So she decided to make a drastic one and run away from home and join the Masmis. We then go straight into the song My World, which is essentially the embodiment of that experience. The breaths in this song represent anxiety. And in the beginning of the song, the breaths aren't that bad. Jen may not be happy, but at least she's comfortable. At least she's in a familiar space. And I feel like a lot of people would write this song backwards. They would write it so that when she's stuck under her dad's thumb, that's when she's the most anxious, and then when she runs away, she gets better. But I disagree with that. I feel like uprooting your entire life and going down an entirely different path all alone is the most anxiety-inducing thing you could ever do. That's why when she decides to abandon her family, the breathing is the most intense it's ever been in the entire song. I like this song. It's very like sort of wibbly wobbly and conceptual, which is hard for me because I like lyrics, I like to speak. But yeah, it's a pretty simple concept. It's about Jen, it's about her running away from her family to claim her own destiny and make her own choices. We then go straight into scene 6, cashing a favor. At the beginning of this scene, we learn that Apollo and Jen met at the tryouts, and Apollo wrote to Jen after they left. Oh, Rizmaster 5000! But she never wrote back, which was a little disheartening until now, when he found out that she wasn't able to write back. She was camping out in a homeless shelter because she didn't want to go back home. Poor Jen. I feel bad for Jen. She's a sweetheart. That's when Tyler shows up. Tyler is here to cash a favor. A lot of you were asking, why does Apollo owe him a favor? It doesn't matter why. The entire point of that was just to show that these two clearly have history, and they also have a favor system. Such is the life of being a couple of bros. And right now, Apollo owes Tyler a favor for whatever reason, and the fact that he's cashing it means that he has to help him because that's the bro code. I love these guys. They're great. But what's Tyler's master plan? Well, the Masmist just got a shipment of Leviathan meat. Weren't we just talking about how Leviathan meat is a delicacy and nobody on the squad has gotten a chance to try it yet? Yeah, Tyler's gonna do something about that. And he's gonna bring Apollo along with him. We then go into the song, Go, Go, Go. This song is a seafood heist. Pretty much everything you need to know about it is shown to you in the Go, Go, Go music video. And I'm not going to break down the music video right now, okay? I do plan on doing separate videos where we go through the animatics and break them down frame by frame, scooping up all the juicy lore. So be sure to subscribe because that's coming in the future. And if you made it this far, you might as well subscribe anyways, you know what I mean? But yeah, this song's pretty self-explanatory, so let's move on to the next scene. Scene 7, Consequences. Yeah, their little plan did not work. Captain Oldovich is chewing they asses out in front of the whole squad and threatens to kick them out until Commander Hakee steps in. She says, slow your roll there, buddy. You do not call the shots around here. I do, much to the captain's chagrin. This scene mainly exists to show 3 things. 1, Tyler is not afraid to stand his ground if he feels like he's doing the right thing, even as something as ludicrous as this. 2, Captain Oldovich and Commander Hakee once again disagree on how to handle things. And 3, we get a further glimpse into Commander Hakeem's unique training style. Some things that may be inexcusable for a more traditional leader like Captain Oldovich are actually perfectly fine in the eyes of someone as eccentric as Commander Hakee. She particularly highlighted that Tyler was willing to go to unreasonable measures in order to achieve his goal. And perhaps a secret underlying reason is that he was also willing to break the rules to achieve his goal. These are traits that Commander Hakee would like to encourage. But as she said in the scene, poor planning is not one of those traits. So if they want Leviathan, they will have to work together to kill one themselves. We then go into the song Mariner, baby! This song really tripped a lot of people up, I'm not gonna lie. I may make a whole video on what I'm about to say, but I feel like most of you are listening to Tales from Cazilor albums wrong. I feel like people are going from scene to song, and asking themselves, who is this song about? And that's the wrong question. The question should always be, what is this song about? Oftentimes, the what is a person, but not always. Every song is thematically tied to the scene before it. It is not always from a particular character's perspective. So when we get to a song like Mariner, for me, in my head, it's kind of like a decades-old sea shanty that I feel like every single mariner knows, and I imagine it would function as like the backing track to an epic Leviathan fight. You know what I mean? Listen, headcanon what you want, but future advice for future albums is to stop asking yourself whose perspective each song is from, and start asking yourself, what is this song about and how is it thematically tied to the scene that came before it? And oftentimes the last thing that people were talking about in the last scene is what the song's about. Once again, I feel like it's not that hard, but because I'm a voice actor and the performer, I get it. I don't blame you. You're not the problem. Unless you are. But yeah, Mariner is just a sea shanty. I wrote this whole album to write a sea shanty. I'm not sorry. It's fire! And maybe one day there'll be an animatic with it where we see the epic Leviathan fight that they had. Hoping and praying. I just need the funds. Come see me on tour. We then move into the last scene of the album, Scene 8, The Feast. This one's a big one. It's basically like 3 scenes in one, so buckle up. First off, we open up clearly after the combat. The squad has successfully killed a Leviathan, and tonight they're gonna eat like royalty. We then transition into like a pirate party happening below deck. There's really not much lore in this scene because I just wanted to chock it full of little character moments. Speaking of which, we see new characters, Gus and Tess, playing this made-up game, Bunko. Some people were asking what the rules to Bunko are, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there are no rules to Bunko. Bunko was a game that Tess made up as an excuse to punch Gus over and over again. These two clearly have a history of being an idiotic duo. Not only in this scene, but also they were briefly name-dropped by Captain Oldovich in the scene prior as an example of people who normally do stupid shit. Then we pan over to our typical crew. Tyler and Apollo bicker, as they always do. We also learn during their bickering back and forth that Tyler technically qualified at the tryouts? But wait, how did he get into this squad full of failures then? A couple more characters are name-dropped by Captain Oldovich. Erica, who is flirting with the pirate girls. Owen Woog, who is doing a keg stand. The squad keeps growing with every name drop, and you still haven't met everybody yet. Then, to round out the scene, we have a very touching moment between Jen and Apollo. Once again, they discuss that cranks isn't really the right term for people like them. They have a little somber moment together, and we fade away, leaving the two of them to watch the ocean glisten in the moonlight. We then go into the final track of the album, Wyldflowers. Here we are, the title track. This song is a love letter to life from the perspective of a wildflower. But it's also about how this group, these teens, are not so different from wildflowers. All these characters came from across the wild. Some had it easy. Others, the world wasn't so kind to them. But none of that really matters because wildflowers don't get to choose where they grow. And that's it, man. That's it. You fucking did it. Before you go, I do want to quickly address the timeline. Yes, Wyldflowers is technically a prequel, but I don't really think it matters like that. Like, both of these albums probably happened around the summer, but Wyldflowers probably technically was a few months before. It doesn't really matter. But I saw people were asking, so there's your answer. And for future reference, almost all Tales from Cazilor albums will probably be in this amorphous zone that is during training. In the D&D show, we learned that training is about 2 years long. And so all of the albums are probably going to take place during that time. We are not going to solve any major plot point in an album. But Nathan, where are we going to solve the major plot points? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's weird to say this because the albums are all you have, but I view the albums as extra fluff, as opportunities for world building and exploring character dynamics. The true story of Tales from Cazilor can and should be told through nothing other than an animated series. And I already got meetings lined up to try and make that happen. For the rest of the year, I'm going to be in pitch room after pitch room, pitching to major studios and indie ones, trying to get this show off the ground. And I would never be able to even think about doing that without your support. It's truly fantastic. So thank you. I'm not saying we'll get greenlit. I'm not promising anything, but we have a foot in the door. And I think that's really cool. Now I just need to convince a couple suits to give me a bunch of money? Don't worry, gang. I got it. If you haven't been convinced yet, you should totally go watch the D&D show. I promise it's worth a listen. I will link it in the description, and I will also put the playlist at the end here. Music video breakdowns are coming to the channel soon, so be sure to subscribe to stay in the loop when that happens. And of course, I'm going on tour in September, where I will be playing all of these songs and all the songs from Tales from Cazilor and all my greatest hits. You don't want to miss it. Head to nathanapollo.com to get tickets for that. Thank you so much for watching. Long live Cazilor. I'll see you later.